Decoded.
Welcome back to Book Decoded, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Today we're going to be talking about a book that really got me thinking differently.
Interesting. Which one?
It's called Land Power by Michael Albertus. Explores how land ownership has shaped, well, societies, I guess, throughout history.
That's fascinating. It's interesting how the book connects land ownership to things we might not always immediately consider.
Like what?
Like racial hierarchies.
Oh, wow.
Gender inequality, even environmental damage.
Yeah, okay.
It's almost like land is this hidden thread, running through so much of, well, human history, basically.
It really is.
Okay.
Okay, so the book starts off with this idea of a great reshuffle.
Okay.
Can you, tell us what that was?
Sure.
And, why is this something that happened so long ago? Why should we care about it now?
Well, imagine like a giant game of musical chairs, but instead of chairs, it's land. And the players are like, entire societies, basically what the Great Reshuffle was.
So like a massive land?
Yeah, this massive reallocation of land that started around the 16th century.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is that the way that land was reallocated, way back then, still affects who has power today. And who's struggling.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, before this reshuffle even started, how was land typically held?
So the book actually talks about, 5 main forms of landholding.
Okay.
You have indigenous communities, who manage land communally.
Right.
And then you have systems where you have lords and peasants, landlords and tenants.
Mm-hmm.
You also had massive haciendas and smallholder farms.
Oh, okay.
Each one of these systems had its own
quirks.
Yeah, quirks and power dynamics.
Interesting. So then things get shaken up, right?
Exactly.
What even caused this reshuffle to happen?
Well, think population boom. More people equals more mouths to feed, which means you've got more competition for land, right?
Yeah.
Then you've got the rise of nation states with rulers who want to consolidate their power.
Sure.
And what better way to do that than by controlling the land?
Oh, I see.
It was like a recipe for a land grab.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you mentioned earlier, the Agua Caliente tribe in Palm Springs.
Right, yeah.
What happened there?
Their story, I think, is a really stark example of how this land reallocation created lasting inequalities. The Agua Caliente, they've lived in the Palm Springs area, well, for centuries.
Wow.
Their way of life is deeply connected to the land. But then, as Palm Springs started becoming this, hot spot.
Oh, yeah.
Their land started becoming more and more valuable.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
Yeah. So is there a pressure to,
Yeah, a pressure to take that land.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately there was. And the book highlights how all these policies, like the Treaty of Temecula, the Homestead Act, and the Dawes Act were just used one after the other.
Oh, wow.
To chip away at the Agua Caliente's land.
Oh, no.
Until they were left with just a fraction of what they had.
So it's almost like this land is valuable, let's just take it.
It was, sadly. And it wasn't just about losing, the acreage. It was about disrupting their social structure.
Oh, right.
Their ability to manage the land communally.
Okay.
This forced assimilation had, devastating impacts that continue to this day.
That's so sad. So this story, it's not just about Palm Springs, right? This happened all over the U.S.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Agua Caliente's experience is, it's a microcosm, I guess you could say, of what happened to Native Americans, well, across the country.
Right.
And it's a reminder of how land reallocation has been used, really, to create and reinforce racial hierarchies.
It's interesting, the book connects something as simple as land to, racial inequality. It's not something you normally think about.
It's true. We often take land for granted.
Yeah.
But land power, it really makes you see how it, underpins so much of our history.
Right.
Our present.
Yeah.
And it's not just race, The book also looks at how land ownership has also shaped gender dynamics.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that. It talked about how women were systematically excluded from owning land in so many parts of the world.
Yes.
And that's huge. But how exactly did that play out?
Well, take the Canadian Homestead Act, for example. In the late 19th and early 20th century, the government was basically giving away free land.
Oh, wow.
To encourage settlement.
Yeah, free land. Who wouldn't want that?
Right. Except, well, there was kind of a catch. Women were excluded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they couldn't actually claim land on their own.
So they couldn't have any, like...
No economic independence or political rights.
That came with it.
That came with owning the land.
So even if, like, a woman was a really good farmer or rancher...
Yeah.
They couldn't get their own land.
Oh, wow. And back then, owning land was often tied to, well, the right to vote.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So by excluding women from land ownership, they were essentially silencing their voices in society.
Right. Yeah.
And it wasn't just Canada.
Yeah.
Similar patterns played out in the U.S., Australia, and parts of Latin America.
Wow. It's crazy how something like owning land could change. Like... So much about...
Social structures.
Yeah, social structures and, like, gender roles and stuff.
Yeah, it really highlights how land is about so much more than just, like, dirt and crops, It's about power, control, and opportunity. But, land power isn't all doom and gloom.
Oh, right.
It also highlights some, like, hopeful examples of how land can be a force for positive change.
Yeah. I remember reading about the Tompkinses.
Right.
Like those American philanthropists who... dedicated themselves to land conservation in Chile. It's like the opposite of, the land grabs we were just talking about.
It is. Christine and Doug Tompkins, they fell in love with Chile's wild beauty, and decided to do something radical.
Oh, what did they do?
They started buying up like huge tracts of land with the goal of protecting them and creating national parks.
Wow, that's pretty radical.
So it's kind of like they were undoing some of the damage caused by past land grabs.
Right.
In like a positive way.
Yeah.
Their crowning achievement was the creation of Patagonia National Park.
Oh, yeah.
In what used to be, well, a heavily degraded sheep ranch.
Okay.
They basically brought the land back to life.
Wow.
Showing that it's possible to restore ecosystems, and create a more harmonious relationship with nature.
It's really inspiring. It's like we actually have the power to choose, a different path when it comes to land use. And there are other conservation success stories, right?
Yes. It talks about the creation of Doñana National Park in Spain.
Oh, yeah.
Which protects, well, like a vital wetland area that was threatened by development.
Okay.
A Spanish ecologist, Jose Antonio Valverde, he led the charge there,
Cool.
Raising awareness and fighting for its preservation.
So it wasn't just like rich philanthropists making a difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These stories give us a glimpse of, what's possible when we actually prioritize conservation and work together to protect our planet.
Okay, so we've talked about how land ownership has been linked to race, gender, even environmental protection.
Right.
But this book doesn't just focus on the past, right?
No.
It also looks at the future of land.
You're right. Land power argues that we're at a turning point.
Okay.
With a growing global population and the looming threat of climate change. The way we manage land will be more important now than ever.
Yeah, I could see how, like, things are getting more complicated,
Yeah.
Like, more people, more demand for food, housing, and resources.
Exactly.
All of which require land. And then you've got climate change.
Yeah, climate change is already disrupting weather patterns.
Oh, right.
Making some areas less suitable for agriculture while opening up others. We're seeing, like, rising sea levels threatening coastal communities and more frequent droughts leading to land degradation.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for conflict, I think.
Right.
If we don't manage this properly.
So what does the book say we should do?
Well, it doesn't offer a simple solution.
Okay.
But land power does provide like a framework for thinking about these issues.
Okay.
And highlight some key lessons we can learn from history.
Like what kind of lessons?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways is the importance of secure property rights.
Okay.
When people have like clear and enforceable rights to their land, they're more likely to invest in it and manage it sustainably.
Right. It makes sense. Like if you're constantly worried about losing your land.
Yeah.
You're not going to be thinking about the soil or the forest or whatever.
Exactly. But it's not just about individual rights either.
Okay.
Land power stresses the need for inclusive policies that don't leave marginalized groups behind,
Right. Yeah.
We need to learn from past mistakes.
Yeah.
And make sure that everyone has a fair chance to benefit from land ownership.
Right.
And participate in decision-making about how land is used.
So it's about a balance between like individual rights and...
the collective good.
Yeah, the collective good.
Especially in a world with, limited resources and climate change.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also like
Yeah.
recognizing that land is more than just something to be bought and sold.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the foundation of our societies,
Right.
our economies, and our ecosystems.
Well, this has given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It's clear that land plays a much bigger role in our lives than we often realize.
It really does. Land power is a reminder that how we manage this precious resource will have, well, consequences for generations to come.
Yeah, and like what really stood out to me was that this book doesn't just like present all these dry facts and figures.
Right.
It like uses all these stories to bring these issues to life,
Yeah.
like the Agua Caliente tribe and the Tompkinses.
Yes.
It makes you actually feel it, like the impact of all these decisions about land.
That's one of the book's strengths, I think.
Yeah.
It blends historical analysis with, compelling narratives.
Right.
So it's both informative and engaging.
Yeah.
You learn about these big trends, but you also meet the people whose lives were like directly affected by them.
Yeah, and it makes you feel like, man, we got to do something. Like we can't just sit back and think everything will be okay.
Yeah.
Got to be more thoughtful and proactive.
Absolutely. I think the book's message is clear.
Yeah.
The choices we make about land today will have ripple effects, for generations to come.
Wow.
It's a call to action, really, to be more aware of the impact our decisions have on this finite and essential resource.
So for our listeners who are thinking like, okay, land is important, but what can I do?
Yeah.
What advice would you give them based on this book?
Well, I'd tell them to read the book.
Yeah, good idea.
It's full of, fascinating stories and ideas that will change the way they see the world around them.
Great advice, but like beyond reading the book, is there anything like practical that people can do?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I think start by getting informed about the land issues in your community.
Okay, yeah.
Are there local conservation efforts,
Right.
you can support? Are there policies being debated that will affect land use?
Yeah.
The more you know, the more empowered you'll be.
That's true. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by like all the global stuff.
Yeah.
But we can always do something locally.
Absolutely. And remember, every little bit counts. Supporting sustainable businesses.
Right.
Advocating for responsible land management practices.
Yeah.
Even just talking to friends and family,
It all adds up.
It all adds up.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we all play a role, in making things better.
Exactly. Land power provides a roadmap for understanding the challenges ahead and the opportunities for positive change.
I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Yeah.
A huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this episode of Book Decoded.
Yes. Thank you.
We explored land power.
By Michael Albertus.
That's right. And remember, folks, the conversation doesn't end here.
Keep exploring.
Keep asking questions.
And keep those minds curious.